we can help you bank safely from the comfort of your home. Download the FNB app. FNB, how can we help you?
In South Africa, over 525,000 small and medium-sized businesses employ close to 6.6 million people, which translates to 11% of the population. And with close to 2 months of the lockdown behind us, a large majority of these business owners were forced to close up shop and face major uncertainty of what the future holds. But with level 3 of the lockdown finally on the horizon, all retail stores will be back in business. But with all the storm, there is always a silver lining to be found. And here to help navigate business owners through these unprecedented times is Andiswa Bata from FNB Business. Welcome to the Loft, Sis Andiswa.
Thank you very much. I look forward to engaging with yourself today.
Andiswa, can you give us a brief overview of the current economic climate small businesses are venturing into from the 1st of June as the country moves from level 4 to level 3 of lockdown, where all businesses will now reopen their doors?
Going into 2020, I think we can all agree it was already quite a challenging environment for businesses in South Africa. We'd heard at the time from Stats SA that the country had entered a recession in the fourth quarter of 2019. There was also a lot of global uncertainty and recessionary pressure on a global scale that led to a bit of currency volatility, amongst other things. Not to mention the impact of load shedding and how we know that that can also interrupt a business's ability to continue operations. Shortly thereafter, we then had the COVID outbreak, which, as you say, have pointed out, has rightfully led to a level of business slowdown as businesses were forced to shut down to contain the outbreak. But what it has done is that it's meant that a lot of businesses haven't been able to earn an income during this time. So as we move from level 4 to level 3, the one thing I do want to remind businesses of is the following. Whilst different recessions are obviously different and have different features, all we have to do is rewind back to the second half of 2008, at the start of the financial crisis, where you will recall the rand had lost 30% of its value against the US dollar, share prices had plunged, oil prices had plunged. South Africa entered a recession in 2009, leading to higher unemployment, pressure on businesses and consumers. And so if there is one thing we can draw upon, is that this country is resilient. And small to medium businesses in this country do tend to bounce back.
So as the economy does reopen and kickstart, small businesses need to start shifting their gears. So what should they be thinking about in order to rebuild their businesses?
One of the things that businesses should be thinking about is reflecting on what's available to them already to help them navigate. We know that the South African Reserve Bank, for example, has reduced the repo rate by a total of 275 basis points since the beginning of 2020, bringing the prime lending rate in South Africa to 7.25%. What does that mean for businesses? It means that for those businesses who have debt obligations that have a variable interest rate, after the business has paid their monthly installments, they now have a little bit extra cash in their back pocket because the interest charged on loans is lower. And that money can now be used to do things like protect employment, reinvest back in the business, or even just boost a cash buffer to allow one to get through the next few months. I think something else that we must also not forget is that COVID has taught us what business expenses a business can live without. It may have been unimaginable a few months ago that one might not need the same amount of office space, one might not need the same amount of air travel costs, but some of the silver linings from the COVID experience are that there are costs we can live without.
So then what can businesses do to survive and thrive going forward?
Apart from the very wide-scale relief measures that have been announced by South African banks and various private partners, as well as by the South African government, I think as one seeks to try and find some support and relief or assistance externally, it's also good for a business to reflect on what they have already done to help themselves, because that also strengthens any application for external assistance. So some of the things a business could seek to do is the cost-cutting reflection, which we mentioned earlier, or to what extent money is trapped in inventory that just hasn't moved into clients' hands, or money that's sitting in invoices that haven't been collected upon, or whether or not one has sufficiently embraced technology for cost-cutting purposes, or even just asking a few questions like whether or not one can buy second-hand or lease as opposed to buying new. I think those are all good operational questions that any business should be asking themselves right now as they seek to survive.
And so your answers are so important. Where can customers go to access information on how they can navigate this current environment?
I would probably direct them mostly to the FNB app, where, particularly for business clients, one can go into the FNB app, click on the COVID-19 icon, and once in that COVID-19 icon, there is a specific tab to click for businesses, and in there is then a whole range of information as well as how to apply for certain relief measures. And in fact, I believe my colleague, Yolandi, will be engaging with yourself in the coming days to talk more about the business toolkit and business talk.
Brilliant. I can't wait for that. And as we're all loading our data so we can go to the FNB app, do you have any closing thoughts to share?
Sure. So I think apart from the fact that I truly believe that businesses in South Africa are resilient and do tend to bounce back, I would really like to issue an encouragement to small to medium businesses that whilst there is obviously the instinct to survive, they should also look at how they can thrive. And what that's going to need is, for one, to shake the fear factor, which, yes, is felt rightfully so because these are unprecedented times. But if you're so paralyzed by the fear of what comes ahead, you may miss the opportunity to reinvent yourself, to repurpose, to shift gears, to offer new products. We've already seen that there's now a far bigger focus on things like local production, given that global supply chains have been impacted by COVID. And perhaps this is the time for fashion designers to seek to rather make masks or protective gear for medical staff. This is perhaps the time for same-day delivery services to thrive. And so I think it's quite important that as much as this is uncharted territory, let's not forget that there are opportunities. And perhaps let's also remind each and every one of us that perhaps this is our Tuma Mina moment to support each other, support local business, use our buying power to help support and keep our local businesses alive. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sis Andiso, for showing us that there's always a silver lining with FNB.
Thank you.
Bye. If you're a small business owner seeking financial advice or relief for your business, you can visit the FNB website at fnb.co.za or the FNB app.
We can help you bank safely from the comfort of your home. Download the FNB app. FNB, how can we help you?